Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're tackling a big one, Modafinil. You've probably heard it called the limitless pill, the ultimate smart drug. But what's the real story? Let's get into the science, the history, and all the hype surrounding it. All right, let's just get right to it. Is this the pill from the movies, the one that unlocks every corner of your brain? Well, spoiler alert, the short answer is no. But honestly, the real story of what this drug actually does is way more fascinating. So, to really get a handle on what modafinil is, we've got to bust a major myth right off the bat. People think of it as this simple little brain booster you can just pop to get ahead, but that's not the case at all. And this is probably the most important thing to understand. This is not a supplement. You're not going to find it in the vitamin aisle. Modafinil, which you might also know by its brand name Provigil, is a seriously powerful controlled prescription medication. It's designed for very specific medical conditions. Okay, so if it's not a smart drug, then what is it? What does it actually do? To figure that out, let's look at its official classification and its surprisingly interesting history. Check this out. Modafinil is in this really unique class of drugs called eugeroics. That word comes from the Greek for good arousal. And that name is perfect because it tells you exactly what makes it different from, say, caffeine or other stimulants. The whole point isn't to give you that jittery, amped-up feeling. It's about promoting a really clean, smooth state of wakefulness. It feels different. So where did this stuff come from? Well, its story starts back in a French lab in the late 1970s. It got the green light in France for treating narcolepsy in the mid-90s and then made its way over to the US a few years later. But here's a key detail you can't ignore. It's a Schedule IV controlled substance. What that means is that, yes, the government recognizes it has a potential for abuse. It might be lower than some other stimulants, but it's definitely there. So the big question is, how does it actually do that? How does it create that super clean, focused alertness without making you feel all jittery and wired? Well, the answer's pretty cool, actually. It's not a simple one-trick pony. It works on your brain in a bunch of different, subtle ways. Yeah, it doesn't just slam one big on switch in your brain. Instead, it kind of nudges a few different systems all at once. It gently bumps up your dopamine levels, which helps with motivation. It boosts norepinephrine and histamine for alertness. And this is the really big one. It activates something called orexin, which is basically the brain's master controller for being awake. It's a much more elegant approach. I love this comparison because it really hits the nail on the head. Think of amphetamines, like Adderall, as a sledgehammer. They just smash the door down and cause this huge flood of dopamine. Modafinil, on the other hand, is more like a symphony conductor. It's not forcing anything, it's just gently guiding all the different parts of your brain's natural wakefulness systems to work together in harmony. And that difference is everything. It's why it feels cleaner and why the risk profile is generally lower. Okay, so we've established it's not officially a smart drug. So what is it for? Why would a doctor actually write you a prescription for this stuff? Let's look at the official FDA-approved uses. Its main purpose, really, is to help people who struggle with staying awake during the day because of some pretty serious sleep disorders. I mean, for someone with narcolepsy, this drug can be an absolute game changer. It's also used to help people with sleep apnea who are still tired even with their CPAP machine. And it's prescribed for shift work disorder, to help people stay awake and alert when their jobs force them to fight their natural body clock. But, of course, that's not the whole story, is it? We have to talk about the off-label stuff. This is the gray area, the reason why it has this whole smart drug reputation. Why are perfectly healthy people, students, programmers, artists, so desperate to get their hands on it? Well, the appeal is pretty clear, right? People who take it off-label talk about this incredible ability to just lock in, to focus on a single task for hours on end without getting distracted. They talk about better memory and finding the motivation to power through boring, tedious work. And maybe the biggest draw? It's like a magic eraser for sleep deprivation, letting you function like you've had a full 8 hours of sleep, even when you haven't. Okay, but here comes the reality check. Those powerful effects, they don't come for free. There are real, significant risks involved, especially when you're using it without a doctor's supervision. You can really split the risks into two buckets. On one hand, you have the more common side effects, things like headaches, nausea, a bit of anxiety. For a lot of people, those are manageable. But then you have the other bucket. These are the rare but extremely serious risks. We're talking about potentially life-threatening skin rashes and severe psychiatric side effects like mania or psychosis. This is absolutely not a harmless drug to mess around with. And there's another more subtle downside that a lot of users talk about. They call it the zombie effect. You get this intense, almost robotic tunnel vision focus, which sounds great, right? But the trade-off can be your creativity, your sense of humor, your ability to just be a person and connect with other people. You might turn into an incredible productivity machine, but you could lose that spark that makes you you. And here's a hidden danger that is so important to know. Modafinil can basically kick your liver into overdrive. It makes your body process certain other drugs way faster than normal, which can make them much less effective. The most famous and frankly scary example of this is how it can interfere with hormonal birth control. That is a critical, life-altering interaction that everyone needs to be aware of. So when you look at all of it, the science, what it's for, and the very real risks, the conclusion is pretty clear. There's no getting around it. This is a serious, powerful medication that should only ever be used with the guidance of a doctor. And that kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it? We started by asking if it's the limitless pill, but maybe the better question is about the future. Drugs like modafinil are pushing us into this new territory of, you could call it cosmetic neurology, changing our brains not to treat a disease, but just to be better. So we have to ask ourselves, where do we draw the ethical line? When does performance enhancement stop being progress and start being an unfair advantage? That's the really big question that a tiny pill like this forces us to confront.